Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Why Are We Like This, a Heartstopper podcast. I'm Ashley, she, her.
And I'm Adam, he, him. And today we are back to talk about Heartstopper, Season 3, Episode 4, Journey, Part 1.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Here we go.
We are splitting it into two parts because, as you have seen in the last two episodes, they are long. And this one, I know we're going to have so much to say, so we just went ahead and split it in two parts so it's a little more digestible for everyone, us included.
Yeah, we've had some girthy episodes, shall we say, but I think this one needed it the most because we have two journeys here in this episode, so it only makes sense to give both of them like the spotlight.
Yeah.
And oh boy, the spotlight, the emotions, everything in this episode, which, you know, Ashley and I have alluded to before, like this is my favorite episode of the season. So it'll be really nice to go into this and just hear your, because we've always said like, it's my favorite. It would just be nice to like go in and hear our thoughts on it because we'll probably have a lot of that. So
yeah,
it makes sense to split it, especially when we do part 2, which will probably be like a bigger part than part 1 potentially, because there's a lot in there as well. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one. This is like, this is gold.
Sure is. It's definitely my favorite episode of the season as well. I think it's my favorite episode of the entire series.
What?
I know. But it's definitely like, I just watch this one all the time on its own. Mm-hmm. Anytime I'm on a plane, this is my go-to. I just watch it on the plane. I've gotten really used to crying in public at this point.
Yeah, fair. Like the air steward comes along, she's like, "Are you okay there?" Like, "I'm fine, Heartstopper."
I'm fine, but I will take an extra drink if you'll give it to me.
And some pretzels, please.
Yeah.
But, yeah, fair. Like, it's interesting, yeah, like, this episode is the one I've revisited probably the most. I do go back to, I'm trying to think, there's certain episodes that I go back to a lot. This is definitely one of them. I think episode 3 of season 1 I revisit quite often as well. Yeah. Because that's like when the ball finally got rolling, I think, and that was a really special episode. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Even just the episode when they first get to Paris, I think is a really special episode in season 2 as well. But yeah, this one for me, this feels like everything they've learned from doing this show is just upped by like 50%. Yeah. You know, like everything, like, you know, this is when I really felt like the storytelling and everything matured as well, and like everything, you know, just feeling the feelings of the characters and like sitting in their emotions and like processing things on like an adult level really felt like it happens in this episode. And it kind of, this is like for me the point where it pushes the whole show in a new direction where like we're maturing now and we're starting to understand our feelings and understand how to process them and how to support people and how to support each other and all of that. So yeah, it's like a springboard for like, this is where we're going for the future. And then when they announce season 4, whenever the hell that'll be, hopefully it'll continue what this episode starts going into the latter part of the season.
I definitely agree. Like the beginning of season 3, the first 3 eps, they do feel like upscale, more mature. But once we hit this episode, it almost feels like a new show. Like this is a very different level that we've hit. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it. You ready?
Mm-hmm. Let's do it. Let's try and keep the emotions back. But,
I'm sure if we get to crying, everybody will just cry with us. It's fine.
If there's ever an episode to do it, this is the one. So
true. But
yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in.
All right. So we start off with this shot of Nick walking Nellie, and this lets us know that it's December now because we get to see all the Christmas decorations in the neighborhood. Then we go inside, and he's like drying Nellie off, and he's like, "I think you're going to need a bath. Very messy." I do. This is the episode where I really start to miss Sarah. Like, I've missed her the last 3, but this is really the part where I start to like notice her absence tremendously. And like in the comics, she's obviously included in this. We skip straight to New Year's Eve in the comics with this winter filling in this gap. I don't know. We don't get to see the part of him later as he's going through all this stuff where he's like, "I've been really anxious, but talking to my mom has helped." And like, even if we don't get to see that, like just a short line about it to let us know that she's supporting him still would have been nice. But I get that, like, I guess that could have, people would have then been like, "Well, you shouldn't even mention her if you're not going to show her." And it's like you can't please everybody, you know? So.
Right. I mean, for me though, like the show doesn't allude to her not being there. Like, you know what I mean? It, like she's still a part of the show, even though we don't see her. So like,
Right.
it would have made sense to have that like A line. I agree with you there. I mean, they do the great thing of like, it brings Nick closer to his friends and like really
Right.
relying on them. So like, because of that absence of Sarah, like the moment with Tao in the corridor means so much more because we are seeing him literally lean on somebody there, whereas we're not seeing that with his mum. But yeah, I agree. Just because, Olivia Colman's an icon and she should be on our screens at all times.
Yeah.
So like I have felt, and plus like because she embodies that role so well, she's so warm and loving, comparatively to Jane. Jane.
Yeah.
But I will get to say nice things about her later, I swear. For all you Jane fans out there, all two of you out there. But 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 yeah, so I do feel like the weight of her not being there is definitely apparent.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I do think it does make up for it when we get those moments of like Nick talking with Tara, Nick with Tao in the corridor, like these moments. And then when he does see Charlie, it does like, I guess, add a bit more emotional depth to that as well. When you're like, oh my God, he hasn't, it's seemingly like he's had nobody until Charlie comes back. So,
Right.
but yeah, I just miss her because she's an icon. It's like Haley Atwell was amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like I lived in those episodes with her, and Olivia Colman brings so much heart and warmth to the show. So that is missed.
Yeah. And it could have been cool to see like a text thread with Aunt Diane where he's like, maybe he could have said like, I've been talking to my aunt about it a lot and she's been helping me, get through it or something. That could have been a cool addition.
Get her on FaceTime, like something. Just have her in a thought bubble in Nick's mind. Just bring that woman back. Have her as much as we can in the show.
Show her on our screen again.
Exactly. Give her an episode. What?
So we get this conversation with Nick. He's in his room and he's on the phone with Tara. And he's saying that he's still got a couple of hours. Charlie wants to like get home and get unpacked. Tara says she's so excited to see him and she can't believe it's been 2 months. So we know for sure he's been gone for 2 months.
Yeah.
She asks how Nick is feeling. He says he doesn't know, which is a theme that we're going to get with Nick from like here on out with his feelings. He's going to answer, I don't know a lot. And so we'll start to see that pick up. And then she starts to like nudge him on the journaling. Have you done any journaling? And he's like, I don't think I'm really a journaling sort of person. And she's like offended. She's like, everyone can journal, Nicholas. It helps you process your emotions. If I didn't journal every day, I'd literally have a breakdown. And that tracks for Tara. Like with her personality and her like type A and everything that she does and how she works and functions, it's like, yes, I can totally see her journaling every single day to make sure that she like processes everything and like gets the feelings out.
Yeah, I was going to say that reads so true with her character because it goes back to what we were saying before where, she feels like at the moment she's so governed by what everybody thinks she should be doing. Whereas, her journal is probably her own escape of when she can write her own thoughts about fuck that. Like, this is how I feel. This is what I want to do. And, and as we said before, like, watching Darcy, like that, watching how they are like exploring everything with their sexuality, with gender and everything like that. And they're, so far removed from people telling them how to live their life, as opposed to Tara, who feels so controlled by like parents, by teachers, by, oh, you're doing so well, so this is the path that you should be walking. So it makes complete sense that Tara has this escape of just like writing everything in her journal, how she actually feels and what she actually wants to do, whether she doesn't know what she wants to do. And that's so important to capture that, just to get that out. And I think that's what she's trying to say here to Nick is like, you don't know how you feel, and that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely valid, and no one's expecting you to know that, whatever. But if you can just write something down, it might start to help generate and put your thoughts together. That definitely helps me, Ash. I have to say, like, if I write stuff down, it definitely helps to collect my thoughts a bit more because I can be scatterbrained about with emotions, right? And I think that's similar with Nick right now. Like, he's kind of scatterbrained, but I'll talk a little bit more about Nick later on. But yeah, anyway, I think it's good advice from Tara.
Yeah, I agree. Even if it's not journaling, just writing everything down and getting it out of your body really helps. And obviously, like, everyone's different, so different things are going to help different people, but I think it's worth a shot if you're struggling and you haven't tried it. You don't even have to keep it. You could, you could burn it, you could throw it away, you could put it in a note on your phone and then delete it. Like, it doesn't have to be something that, like, you have to sit and stare at all the time. You could just get it out and throw it away and be done with it. And then you might feel a release, because that's definitely what I feel when I get it out.
That's what it's all about.
And he's like, you don't have to give me the whole pitch again. Which is so funny because I love that that's showing us that she's like, this is probably like the 15th time she's tried to get him to do journaling in these
Pick up
last
that
2 months.
goddamn pen, Nick.
Yeah, yeah. And he's like, all right, fine. If I try it, will you stop pressuring me?
Mm.
A couple things. I do love his tiny Christmas tree he has on his dresser. It's so cute. And then there's an anatomical drawing of a heart with like labels and stuff hanging on his wall that was clearly like a school project. And I don't know why, but that made me be like, ah. So, just cute. So Nick hangs up the phone. He goes over to his nightstand and he pulls out a journal. And at this point in my first watch is when I was like, I was so overwhelmed already with anticipation that I had to pause and go outside and like get some air. And I was like, I'm going to have a panic attack just like anticipating what's about to happen on my screen. I had to take a break and come back to it.
Fair. Absolutely fair.
The voiceover kicks in to tell us what he's writing, but also we see that it is December 17th. So, and we know that it was like around the like 15th, about halfway through October when Charlie goes into, which is going to help me with my timeline once we get to like Halloween and like how long has he been gone and stuff. So, and he starts out by saying, you know that saying, things get worse before they get better. I think I understand that now. And I'm already crying. Like, I'm already crying before we even get into it.
Oh man, like, I mean, that line just, that's like the line of like this episode, you know, like for both journeys, like they both have to face that in different ways. And that's really interesting. Like, you know, Charlie has to face it on like a really physical, like a physicality to facing that, you know, like how everything's affecting his body and like how he feels on a daily basis, like in terms of like, you know, all of that, like facing food and like the effect that that's going to have on him and everything. Whereas Nick, it's kind of, you know, it's a lot more obviously emotion driven. And I think the beauty with this, with Nick, and what you really see in this episode is that it's almost like Nick is just like wandering. He's not present because he's like haunting the space. You know, he's like, he's just wandering through each scene, and you see like those moments of when he's sitting with his friends and like physically he's there, but his mind isn't, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it is just thinking about this impending dread. It's like there's a countdown timer on Nick before he like eventually explodes and like succumbs. And that's what happens in the corridor, you know? And obviously, you know, there's a kind of a reset in that when he does eventually see Charlie, but it's just, it's such an important thing to learn at such a young age, and some people don't learn that for such a long time. And, you know, bearing in mind, we've got, you know, kids here that have to learn these big things of, you know, things get worse before they get better. You hear these things and you see these slogans written on like, you know, you see them written in like mothers' houses, like on like plaques or whatever, live, laugh, love, and all that stuff. And you'll see like stuff like this as well. But when you understand the weight of that, and when you understand what that actually means at their young age, it is that kind of, oh shit, I'm going to have to really feel something before something gets better. I don't know what that is. I'm walking into the darkness before it becomes light. And that's exactly what happens. You know, it's just, it's nice foreshadowing.
Totally. So then we get the title card.
Yeah.
Which is very cute, little journaling of Journey. And then we are thrown back to the spring living room. Nick, Tori, and Charlie are on the couch. And Jane's like pacing back and forth. And we hear Nick say, back in September, Charlie had a GP appointment. And then we see like Jane making the appointment. He said he hates to go to the doctors. I mean, who enjoys going to the doctors, especially for something like this. I love the like ripped pages that show up in the corners to show us the month. That is such a nice touch. I also love, just a quick silly little thing before we get too serious, Tori is sitting on this couch next to them and her feet don't touch the ground. And I was like, same girl, same.
Show people visibility. I love that.
So then we like cut and they're still on the couch, but Tori's gone. So it's just the two of them. And he says it must have gone okay because he got referred to an eating disorder service. We see the paper and it's got their like referral notice on it for January 24th. Remember that this is September. That is so normal. That's so normal for the wait to be that long, and it fucking sucks.
That's NHS, baby. Unfortunately, that is the way it is in England. You know, like, don't get me wrong, NHS is amazing, and I'd never want it to go away. But Yeah, sometimes wait times like that are just astronomical, and it does suck. I mean, like, I'm sure the American healthcare system will be probably similar, like wait
It's very
times to
similar.
see. Yeah, and you're just like, what? Like, and it's crazy. Like, this is affecting me right now, and I have to wait that long to see somebody, but that's just the way it is. It's wild, which
Yeah.
is why I'm so pleased that when the shit does hit the fan, they're like, right, no, we can't wait that long. Let's get this clinic, let's get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like Jane in this episode for helping to arrange that. Even just the way the letter looks and everything. I have letters for the NHS that look exactly the same. It's so authentic.
Yeah.
And again, like just that disappointment of like opening a letter from the doctors to see how long the wait time is, like it just hits you. It
Yeah.
does. It just hits you and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna have to endure this for this long. And that's what we kind of start to see how things get worse because of that.
Yeah. So then Nick says, but things started to get really bad after that. And then we get this montage that's like a
Mm.
really long one that just kind of like fills in a lot of time. So we hear Nick say his eating disorder got worse, and we see him like trying to give Charlie some toast. And Charlie yells at him, "Can you just stop trying?" Then it cuts straight to the picnic tables with Nick, Charlie, Isaac, and Tao. And Isaac is saying, "You can talk to us, Charlie." And Tao says, "Yeah, we're just worried about you." And Charlie again just pops off at him and says, "Well, can you stop? I don't have to tell you everything." And then voiceover Nick says, "Then he started to get really angry and then he stopped talking to me about it." And like in this shot, you can really see Tao and Isaac's concern. Like we know they were already concerned beforehand, but like shit's getting real and you can tell that they're very, very worried,
Mm.
which is probably just pissing Charlie off even more because, he's worked
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
hard for so long to hide this part of himself. And so every time anybody acknowledges it, it's like salt in the wound.
And we spoke about this before. Like Charlie has like a big thing about control, like
Mm-hmm.
he likes to make sure that like everything's perfect. Like for Nick's birthday, everything had to run so smoothly. And like given his experience of like when he was outed and he didn't have control over that, obviously it's had an effect on him. So anything to do with Charlie, like going through this, he has to experience it on his own terms and be ready to tell people. So like when people are telling him about this, that's like a big no-no for Charlie, and that's why the resistance and the wall comes up straight away. He's like, no, 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 I'm not going to do this again.
Right.
I will tell you about this. And we see later on that when he obviously does break down in the art room with Nick, that approach just ain't working. You've got to,
Yeah.
if people are going to help you, and if you open yourself up to be helped, unfortunately those barriers do have to come down.
Yeah.
But I have to say, all of this being undercut with Black Friday is just,
Yeah.
my God, Ash. Like, I'm going to point out a very small portion of lyrics in Black Friday for those of you that haven't heard.
Please do.
There's a verse in the song where the lyrics are, I want a better body. I want better skin. I want to be perfect like all your other friends. You look so pretty, pretty like the wind. Every time you touch me, I feel adrenaline. It's almost like Tom Odell wrote that for Charlie. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's
That
perfect.
is bang on how Charlie feels. Like every time Nick does is in like his eye line, like he feels the adrenaline, like,
Mm-hmm.
all of this like drops away like for a limited amount of time.
Right.
But like the way Charlie feels about his own body, all of this, like he has so much doubt in himself, like in terms of like how he sees himself, right? Didn't want to take photographs and send them of himself back to Nick. He's got like self-harm scars and everything like that. And obviously when we find out he's suffering with anorexia and OCD, it's all like it all comes into play of how he sees himself and how he
Mm-hmm.
sees Nick, which is, pretty like the wind. It's just
Mm-hmm. And
so it's
perfect.
perfect, exactly. It just makes complete sense. So yeah, this song was perfectly chosen for this montage. It literally it's like it was written for this.
Mm-hmm. 100%. My next note was about
Oh, about
Black
Black Friday.
Friday.
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
No, you're good. So we see Nick walk into the art room, and that's when we get the lyrics do start up. And he says he started to skip school a lot. And we see him inform alone. And he texts Charlie, "Hey, you off school today too?" Question mark. And we can see that like Charlie hasn't responded in a while.
Mm.
Also, just seeing Nick at school alone hurts me so much. It hurts so bad. And he says it was a spinning wheel that was just getting faster. And then we cut to the art room floor.
Mm.
And Charlie's crying and Nick is holding him. And the voiceover says, and it was becoming unbearable for him. And Charlie apologizes. He says, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." And the voiceover says, and you know, he told me he used to self-harm. And then flashback Nick tells Charlie it's okay. And Charlie says, I just feel so shit all the time. I've been so horrible to you and everyone else, and I hate feeling like this. I'm sorry. And Nick says, it's okay, it's okay. And the voiceover kicks back in and says, I read up about it online as well, and it said you have to make them feel cared for and not judge them. It didn't feel like enough, but I guess I tried. I tried to just be there. And then flashback Nick gives him an I love you. This was the scene that got spoiled for me from the leaks.
Oh, no. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Luckily the sound wasn't on, so I didn't hear any of it. But I just opened TikTok to post our TikTok for that day, and it was the first one that like was up on the feed. And I literally threw my phone. I was like, I threw it. I was like, no, no, no. But then I couldn't. It was like burned into my head. And then I like had a little cry because I was like, they're going to sit in the art room and they're going to cry. And I can't believe I just saw that. It was horrible, horrible thing to get spoiled. But also at the same time, it's like, at least I was a little prepared for it.
Right, yeah. See, I'm like that with spoilers. Like if I see anything that like, you know, it's confirming something that either, you know, one, I expected but wasn't confirmed, or two, that like I didn't know and then I'm told, I am raging.
Yeah.
Like my brother used to spoil stuff for me all the time, where he'd walk into the room and be like, oh yeah, it's a shame they die at the end. And I'm like, do you want me to commit murder? Like, literally.
Seriously.
So I hate it. So yeah, I totally feel your pain there, Ash. If I saw anything, I'd be like, well, my full day's ruined. Like, it drives me insane.
Yeah. So, and then I just have a couple notes that the art room being a place of like safety and comfort and stability will always be so special to me. Mm-hmm. And I've always seen the art room as like a safe haven. And like this room has had such an impact on him that it's like part of his roots now. And the fact that he and Nick are literally sitting on the roots of the art room tree having this discussion, it always hits me that Nick is now a part of his roots too, and part of his core and like an integral part of his story. And so that just like makes me cry extra hard.
Brilliant, Ash. Brilliant. Yes. Oh, that's amazing. That's exactly it. Yes, honestly, bang on there. All I was going to say, like a couple of things, was that, you know, it's no mistake that they're sitting on the roots of that corner of the room. You know, like it's so purposely put. It's absolutely what you've just said beautifully. The only thing I'd add is that, you know, they're not blossoming right now. They are like in the ground, and all of this is happening above while they still feel so anchored into the ground of being, you know, overwhelmed. Things are obviously darker. It feels darker down there, you know, but as well, like, I mean, this scene alone, it reminds me of like when, and this is just me speaking from my experience. Obviously, I'm not saying this is the same for everybody, but when talking to somebody that's going through something, and, you know, like we see earlier on, Charlie is like lashing out, you know, he's like biting back at people, saying like, no, that's like, for me, it's almost like possession. Like, it's almost like, you know, you've got this demon in you, and it's like something that you can't fight, and it's just controlling everything about you. And it's like, he's just like, no, back off, back off. And then in this scene, we get the glimpse of like the real Charlie is in there saying, oh my God, I need help. Please, can somebody please just help me? I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to do this. And it can feel like when we are going through something that we are, you know, bogged down by like a demon that's just like hanging on us, you know, like it's like this big like shadow on us, like a big demon on our back, so to speak. And so it's nice that we get this scene where Charlie is literally, that this is what Nick is holding out for, like this real Charlie who is gonna ask for help. And this is the moment. And that's why it's such a big moment, because we know for so long Charlie is like, nope, I'm going to sort this. Like, you don't understand my feelings like I do. I can sort this out. I can rectify this. This is what needed to happen. And again, this is the nice moment of what gets the ball rolling of, we cannot wait till January. We need to do something right the hell now.
Yeah. And in the comics, they do this little talk outside the school, and they're like leaning against the fence over by the rugby field. And this feels so much more meaningful that it's in the art room, and also more accurate to Charlie's character, because he's not going to break down publicly. Like this would not happen. He's always going to run and hide to have his vulnerable moments. And I don't think that him leaning against the fence outside where anyone can walk by and see him having a breakdown, that just is not going to happen.
And it's Nick following his aunt's advice as well. He take them to a safe space, you know,
Yeah.
and this has always been a safe space for them in the art room. So it definitely makes a lot more sense in the TV show than what it does the comic. Because as you say, like anyone can walk by and just eavesdrop on the conversation. Any friends can come over, hey, how's things going? And then the whole conversation's ruined, you know?
Right.
It needed to happen in this space where they can fully get everything out without, you know, worry of anyone coming over.
Mm-hmm. But so then we get some like positive scenes spliced in here to show that it's not 24/7 all consuming. It's more of a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So we get this shot of Nick, Tori, and Charlie playing Mario Kart. Tori starts to mess with Charlie's controller, and Nick is like, yes, this is amazing, which is very cute. And then we see Nick and Charlie in form, and Nick is like drawing on Charlie's hand, and he says, see how the hair flicks? Those crazy. And then Charlie moves his hand, and he's like, Charlie, you can't do that. My guess is he was drawing comic Charlie. Because of the hair flicks, and we know that they've been trained on how to draw their characters by Alice. So
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that's so cute. And then we cut to the park, and this is a good scene where you really do get to see like the roller coaster happen all in one scene, because everyone's sitting around while Elle is cutting Darcy's hair, and the group is chanting Darcy's name, Darcy, Darcy, and you can see he's like bobbing his head and like tapping his foot, like he's he's present for a moment, and then all of a sudden he's not engaged anymore. And you can see that the darkness is just kind of like pulling him back in that moment, and we get that lovely shot of Nick rubbing his arm and pulling him back into the present again.
And I love as well, like, he kind of just like nods. Like, it's just like a subtle, like, I'm still here. I'm just going through something. And like, that says so much, because when those moments happen, we're just so, like, I'm just speaking from my own experience, but I always feel like I'm just so unaware that it's happened. So it's like going into a dream and then someone's pulling me back out. Yeah. And I think that's what brilliantly happens here, is that Charlie is just wandered back in, as you said, wandered back into the darkness unawares, and then it's like Nick just rubbing his arm is just reminding him, hey, we're all still here, like, you know, we got you. And it is just that gentle, I know, but, you know, and that's what that says.
Definitely. And then we get our October tag shows up, and Nick is in bed, and the voiceover says he knew the compulsions made no sense, but he didn't know how to make them stop, and neither did I. And then we hear Charlie say it was an accident. Nick says, I know. He says, I just feel so stupid. And Nick is like, it's not your fault. And Charlie says, but I can't stop. And then we can hear Charlie is like, he's really sobbing. Like he's struggling. And Nick says, do you think maybe you should tell your parents? I'm glad for my own sake that we didn't have the A&E visit that happens in the comics. Like, that's how he gets referred to the eating disorder service. And, like, maybe it should have been mentioned to, like, really show how truly bad it got. I mean, it's bad enough as is, but the comic readers know that it got a little worse than we're shown in the show. And, like, this is not a complaint. It's just an observation I had.
Yeah.
But doing it this way shows, I think, more growth with Charlie and his parents, which I do like, because rather than being referred from A&E, his parents have done some research on their own, and they've shared this clinic info with Charlie, and they're letting him decide if he wants to go for it or not. And that's a massive step for them. Jane is so used to like making the quote unquote rules and not leaving any room for discussion. So knowing that he is actively self-harming and not forcing him into treatment is huge for her. And I would have loved to see the conversation between Jane and Julio about how they came to this decision to offer it to Charlie and let him decide.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, going back a little bit to what you were saying about obviously the A&E kind of scene doesn't happen, but I think Charlie sells it. Like, I think Joe Locke sells it.
Definitely.
And we get even just him saying like, oh, you know, like kind of like I've relapsed. Like, we understand what that means. You know? But I agree. Like, I love that. You know, in the last episode of when Nick and Charlie were like reading Charlie's letter out to his parents, and you saw the look on Jane's face going from like, oh, like, what is this, to we fucked up. And
Yeah.
predominantly I fucked up.
Yeah.
So like this isn't Jane with like the washing basket asking Charlie to get his homework done, and this isn't Jane, saying, "Oh, have a paracetamol, everything will be fine." Like this is Jane now stepping up. And that's
Yeah.
why I said, and I've been alluding to this for a while, I'll give her a lot of credit in this episode because this is the best version of Jane.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she does revert a little bit in later episodes, but like she's doing what a parent should do here. Like shit, like my kid is going through something. We ain't waiting on the NHS. We're doing something now. And I really, really like her for doing that. As I say, it would have been nice to see that conversation. But when we do see them at the clinic later on with Charlie, that's the best version of Jane I think we get ever.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to see that she isn't just like a stereotypical like demonic parent character. Like we see these layers to her. And
Right.
obviously I'm not a parent. I can't speak on having children and everything like that. But at the same time, we needed to see this. We needed to see that it's not only Nick who it can help Charlie, that there is a support group around him. And that was
Yeah.
great to see.
Yeah. And she is trying, even with her backsliding in the next couple of eps, she's trying. She's actively trying, and that's what's important. So yeah, we see that homepage of the Daffodil Clinic and him saying that Dad said it had to be his decision. And Nick says, "Do you think it'd help?" And Charlie says, "Not really, but I'd get to skip school for a bit." So, and I think that's just another, I don't think that Charlie really believes it won't help. I think he's outwardly playing safe. You know what I mean?
100%.
But yeah, so packing the trunk, Nick and Charlie are outside the spring house and they hug. And Charlie says, "Don't cry. If you cry, I'll cry." And Nick says, "Not sure I can help it." And they hug again, and then we get this shot of the car pulling away, and Charlie's looking back out at Nick, who's standing in the street watching him go. And they wave at each other. This is the same outfit that Nick wore in episode 106, Girls, which was a massive turning point for Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's interesting that they put him back in that exact same outfit for this. Charlie has on his season 1 jacket, but he also has on the orange jumper he wore to the movies in Bully. And this is also the jumper that Nick is going to daydream about him in later in the season. Do with that info what you will.
But isn't this scene just heartbreaking? Like,
yes, holy shit.
Oh my God. Like, and you know what it is? Like, they've given like much more dramatic performances than this scene, and we're going to get that later on, definitely from Kit. But just again, like it is that they're both wandering through space together, trying to figure things out, also without not knowing how to do that. And like this clinic is like the savior, but it's taking them away from each other as well. So for all that, it's absolutely what needs to happen. It's still going to pull them apart, and it's like, and it's focusing. You can see it on both of them, like. Yes, like Charlie jokes saying, "Oh, I'm going to be able to skip school." Obviously, that's more for me, Charlie being able to say he's going to be away from everyone for a while because Charlie's really good at schoolwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's that awful thing of it gets worse before it gets better. And this is it coming back, like we are going to be away from each other for some time and that is going to be horrendous. I'm not going to be able to see you. I can't even text you or call you, but I know that it will help you to get better. And it's that coming back round again in this moment.
Yeah, and another props to the makeup team because Charlie looks really sick in this shot too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, like to go back to the lighting briefly, but like, those moments of during the montage of when like they are playing Mario Kart together and having fun, it is that real, like the room is lit really light. It looks very dreamlike. And then we get this, it's like, for all that it's a sunny day, it's quite a grey day.
It's dreary almost.
Yeah. Black Friday's still playing in the background. Yeah. Like the color palette isn't as bright as Poppy. It's like, this is real.
Yeah.
Now. Like this is a real color palette. This isn't dreamlike.
Yeah.
And that's them accepting it. So again, it's really masterfully done.
Yeah, totally. So then we get a shot of Nick alone in form. He says it was weird being at school without Charlie. Then we see him on the beanbag Googling, which is another great parallel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He wasn't allowed his phone in there, so I couldn't even ask how he was. And then we see what he's Googling, and we see that there's treatment in hospital for mental health. It says, "My time as an inpatient, a peaceful and therapeutic getaway from the real world." And then we see a psych ward horror story. Inpatient treatment can be scary and intense with little privacy. And I just feel like every time we see him Googling something important, he literally gets the most traumatic
Yes. It's
stuff, like,
horrendous.
which is, it's valid. Not everybody has a good
Absolutely.
experience
Hmm.
in mental health facilities. They are notoriously understaffed, underfunded, everyone's stressed. It can be a negative environment, but for some people, it really works.
And also, it's so true to life when like anything that happens, like how many times have like we had like an ailment or something, we're like, oh, I'm going to Google what that means. Like my finger's itchy. I wonder why. My arm's going to fall off.
Yeah,
Like,
actually, I'm dying tomorrow.
yeah, yeah, like literally in 10 minutes, I'm going to be gone. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's like, so it's so true to life where we read all the good stuff, but hell, do we read the bad stuff as well? When you buy anything online, oh yeah, these reviews are great, but let me read those negative reviews.
Yeah, and that's what you remember. You remember the negative
Yes,
ones.
exactly. And that's kind of like what you see on Nick's face of when he does see that, he's kind of
Yeah,
like before it cuts away at the next scene. So again, it's just adding more to the dread, and he's already worried about Charlie, and then seeing that, it's like, well, now I'm just gonna, burst
yeah.
into emotion.
Especially not being able to talk to him, like having no idea what kind of experience he's having.
Because straight away he's thinking like, what if Charlie's going through that? Oh my God, what if that's how
Yeah,
he feels? And as we say, like Nick is driven by emotional intelligence. So like he latches onto that. That I think hangs over him more than anything over these next few
definitely.
scenes of like the Halloween party and everything like that. This is what is in his mind.
For sure. And then we get a scene of him driving with a driving instructor. And he says, I guess I tried to keep myself busy or distracted or both. And then he kind of like runs over to the other side of the street. And the instructor has to like correct the wheel. And he says, I wasn't very good at it though. And now I have a British question for you.
Here we go.
What's with the letters that are on cars? Because this has an L, and then, which I'm assuming is learner,
Hmm.
but then there's a P on it later when he does have his license. What are the letters? Because we don't do that here.
Okay, so when you are learning to drive here, you must have L plates on, and that is learner. So it's letting everybody else on the road know, like, you are a learner driver. So it's just giving forewarning to other people. And like, to be honest,
Right.
like, it's a bit of a bitch, Ash, when you are a learner driver because people treat you like crap on the road. Like, they'll
Yeah.
try and overtake you, they'll try and get past you, they'll cut you off, they'll speed past you because like they see you as like, oh, well, they can't drive. I'm not going to be stuck behind a learner who's doing like 20
Right.
and a 30. So like, I got that when I was learning to drive. So it's by law, like if you are a learner driver with like a person who can drive in the car with you, you must have an L plate on your car. It's what they're called, L plates.
Interesting.
Now the P, now this isn't mandatory. I didn't use this when I passed, but learner drivers who have just passed, like literally passed within like a week or something, they can put a P on the car. Now that means passed, but what it means is I am still a relatively new driver. So it's saying like, I have passed, but I am still pretty new. So like, someone going by will see just one person in the car, but it's like kind of like it's just a warning of like, oh, heads up, just bear with me. I am recently
I'm new
passed,
at
so I am
this.
still new. Yeah. Now that's not mandatory. You don't have to use that. And the reason why my dad said to me, do not put it on, Adam, is because people will still treat you like a learner driver. So
Yeah.
it's best just to like crack on and get on with it. But that's what it means essentially. So
Interesting.
the L's are mandatory, the P is not.
Are there other letters or are those the only two?
Nah, those are the only ones. And sometimes you can get like another color L as well, which means the same thing as the P. But normally it's L and then P once you
And then
pass.
P.
But again, that's not mandatory. But for the
Heard.
show's purposes, it's like it's reflecting on what it's like in England. And most people do use a P, to be fair.
We have the student driver magnets, but those are usually on like the driver's ed cars. Like,
Mm.
not often is someone who's just out with their parent learning gonna have that. Maybe if the parent says, no, we're putting this on the car, but it's definitely not mandatory.
And the thing is as well, like I remember growing up and watching American media and seeing like, even in Buffy, like Cordelia takes like driver's ed. And we don't have that in England. Like you don't have like a class that you go to like that.
Oh, really?
No. So like, is that part of school? Like, is that part of, no, hell no. No, that's not a thing in England. So like, I remember watching that and being like, are they going from their school classroom to like drive a car? Not a thing.
No,
So
it's
like,
part of school.
right, that's so interesting because in England, literally, it's like you have to go out and get your own private like driving instructor, and you pay for that yourself, and like they teach you. Now, very fortunately, my dad is a driving instructor and driving examiner, so he taught us
Oh,
all how to
nice.
drive. So like I saved a shitload of money from not having to
Yeah.
get my own private one. But yeah, that's what I mean. So like if you go with a driving instructor in England, you drive their car and they have the L plates and everything all over it already. If you go with a parent, obviously my dad taught me to drive, but I still had to put L plates on like his car, even though when I got my own car in that time, we then put them on my car. And he was teaching me how to drive, so, but yeah, it's all independent and it's an absolute fortune. It's not cheap. Yeah, it's all independent. So we don't have that as part of school. So like
Interesting.
Nick in this scene will have hired a driving instructor who was teaching
Yeah.
him.
We do have private driving schools, and driver's ed is not required. It
Okay.
is an elective. I took it because it was an easy credit
Hey,
that I
fair. You
could
know what?
take.
Fair.
So,
And obviously, this is like giving hints towards like the last episode as well when they're sharing the
right.
drive, like up and down the country for the university. So it obviously
Yeah.
had to be there.
Right. Yeah. So then we see Nick putting Nellie in her bed, and we get this heartbreaking little moment where he's like, "Do you think he's okay?" Yeah, me too. At least he doesn't have to wait till January, and he's probably made some friends as well. Yeah, I think so. The scenes of Nick talking to Nellie break my heart in a special way.
I think if you're a dog owner, it makes sense. Like talking to
Yeah,
your animal like that. God,
100%.
I know I do with my parents' dogs, and even now when I walk dogs in the city, I'm still doing that.
Yeah,
Makes
yeah.
sense.
One thing about Nick is that he's not good at opening up. As emotionally intelligent as he is, and as good at getting others to talk to him about what they need to talk about, he's not good at opening up about
Hmm.
what he's feeling himself. And so this is a way that he can get those. It's kind of like journaling. It's a
Yep.
way for him to get it out of his body, but not have to have any feedback from anyone else.
Hmm.
Just support and cuddles is all he
Hmm.
gets. And so it's a good tool for him to use.
Absolutely.
And then we get this shot or this scene of him with the rugby lads, and they're playing Super Smash Brothers. I love that game, by the way. That is
Amazing.
like my go-to. If we are playing, I want to play Super Smash.
Oh my God,
Um,
same. I play as Ness every time.
so good. But Nick is like, Sai, how much do you play this game? He's obviously winning. And Otis is the one that brings up Charlie. He's
Hmm.
like, where's he been? He's missed like the last 4 practices. And Nick kind of stumbles. He's like, he's just off sick at the moment. And it's Christian that's like, shit, he must be really bad if he's been off this long. And Nick is like, yeah, he's pretty bad. Christian's like, seriously? And then Otis is like, well, what's going on with him? And Nick, he fumbles again, and he's like, I can't really talk about it. And Christian's like, no, it's all good. And Sai's like, yeah, we're here for you. And I'm so glad to see that he's like having them over and he's bonding with them. And I'm so pleased with the way that they handled this interaction, because they could have pushed, and they read the room, and they were just saying like, yes, we're here to support you. We're here for you.
Yeah. In season 1, rugby lads would have pushed.
Yeah.
And it would have become a thing, and like there would have been like, oh, tell us about your boyfriend and blah 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 blah, and there would have been jokes thrown around and everything. But obviously, like they've probably been aware that like Nick's been affected for a while and he hasn't been
Yeah.
himself for a while. So I think they're good on them for reading the room, and like just saying like, oh, all good, mate. Like we're here if you need to talk, and then let's just keep playing the game. And that's what you need sometimes. You can tell when someone doesn't want to talk about something. So you just kind of you close that conversation down with just saying, look, all right, no worries. Here if you need us. Let's crack
Yeah.
on because this is what you need right now. And they're able to do that. So it's the best interaction you could have had with them.
Yeah. And we don't get any voiceover during this. And so this is another bit of, like you said, of like showing us instead of telling us.
Hmm.
However, I would have loved to have heard Nick at least just mention like how much it means to him that they've really been there, which is just a selfish note on my own part. I just would have loved to hear him acknowledge that they have been there for him, and that,
Right.
he's got people outside of the core group.
Mm. And it's nice as well because it kind of juxtaposes like both of their journeys here, where Nick is like bouncing around between people, like the rugby lads, his friends, like Sarah, who obviously, we don't see but is present in the show, the dog. Whereas Charlie is like facing this basically all alone, you know? So it's
Yeah.
like interesting that even though Nick has all these people around him, he is still hanging on to this. And as I said earlier, like haunting each space that he's in, but alone, you know? Like he's there in
Mm-hmm.
person, but he's not there in mind. So it's interesting how even though they're both physically in different positions, like mentally they're kind of in the same place where they're facing something alone. And as you said, it leans more into the fact that Nick hangs onto his emotions and doesn't open up a lot. So it is great when we do get those scenes when he's talking to, you know, like talking to the dog, and like when he does start to actually journal. It is good to hear that.
100%. And then we get this scene at the park. And they're at the Nick and Charlie tree, which hurts
Hmm.
me. And it's the whole Paris squad. And the voiceover says, Charlie said I could tell our friends what's going on. He didn't want them visiting, but they still found a way to show their support. And we see this very pretty box, which Imogen
Yeah.
then comments, pretty box. It's like space themed, which is cute.
Yeah.
Nice little callback to his space gay
Mm-hmm.
phone screen he had. And Sahar's like, maybe we could put some self-care stuff in there, like face masks. Darcy says, what about board games? No, wait, Top Trumps. Do you think they make gay Top Trumps? Is Top Trumps like Cards Against Humanity?
No, top trumps is slightly different. So it's like you could get like Buffy top trumps, for example. So it's like every character, yeah. So like every character will have like for those that don't know, Ashley's eyes literally like increased by 5 like times when I said that.
Like
But
what?
like hold on, stop. But she's like on eBay immediately now. But yeah, like you can get so like every character as part of something will have like certain stats about them, and you play it like you put them down, and like whoever's got the most powerful like character can like win in that round. So it's like a card game
Okay.
like that. But you can get it for like loads of things. When there's like like a lot of characters like Buffy top trumps, so you can get like so in this case when Darcy says like, oh, can you get gay top trumps? I imagine they've probably like collected a lot of like famously gay people or characters or whatever and put them together as like in their own top trumps.
Heard.
That's kind of what it is. But yeah, it's like a card game. God, I haven't played it in like so long. But yeah, you can get so many different variations. But the rules are the same, but the cards can obviously be themed for whatever. But
Right.
it's pretty cool.
I'm gonna have to look into Top Trumps now.
There you go.
So then Isaac is like, I don't know about the gay Top Trumps. And then he says, I'll make a book list. Tao says, what about movies? Does he have access to a Blu-ray player? And Isaac says, yeah, probably. And then Imogen says, what's a Blu-ray player? Imogen,
I know. Like,
my
girl,
sweet
come
baby
on.
girl. What do you mean, what is a Blu-ray player? Which, of course, Tao is like, what?
Like, what? She's like,
Yeah.
I only stream everything.
She's like, I only watch David Attenborough.
Okay, stop saying that now because you know who he is. I have not forgotten.
Tara says, she leans over to Nick and she says, did Sahar tell you she's having a massive Halloween party?
Mm.
Nick says, yeah, Imogen keeps sending me couples costume ideas, which is going to pay off.
Yeah.
Tara says, so you're going to come then? And he's like, I don't know. And Tara says, you could use a night out. I know I could. And he says, yeah, it just feels weird. And she says, without him. And he says, yeah. I love Tara, trying to look out for Nick here. I also have some stuff to share from the Tumblr.
Hey.
Someone asked what the messages from everybody on the card for Charlie said, and so Alice shared. She said, so the situation with the card was that we realized very, very shortly after we shot the scene that we didn't have any content for the card. So a crew member from the art department asked me on set if I could very quickly write messages, which I did in my notes app and sent them as a screenshot. And then someone from the team wrote them on the card. And they didn't get a photo of like the cards finished, but they do have the phone note. So they shared the messages. So Nix says, hi, Char. You are so strong and you'll get through this because you're amazing. I love you so, so much, and I'm always here for you. I miss you, and I can't wait for you to come home when you're ready to. I love you. Love, Nick.
I mean, that absolutely tracks.
I love the when you're ready to.
Mm-hmm.
Then Taos says, Charlie, school is so weird without my BFF. I miss you so much, little guy. Please look after yourself, or I will be very cross. Love you so much, Charlie, and I hope you like your present. I can't wait to hear what you think. Tao, XXX. Also, perfectly Tao.
Very much so.
Els says, Dear Charlie, we all love you so much and can't wait to see you soon. I'm so sorry things have been so hard. Things will get better. I know it. I can't wait for Christmas movie nights with you and the boys. L. And then Tara says, Hi, Charlie. Sending you so much love and strength. You're an incredible person, and we all care about you so much. I really hope you feel better soon. I love you lots. Oh, I love you lots and lots. Tara, XX. And then we have, Hey, Charlie. Life can be so shit sometimes, but we always fight back. You're one of the coolest people I know, and you're going to come back more powerful than ever. Love you, Darcy. And then, Dear Charlie, love you so much. You're an incredible and inspiring person, and what you're going through now will only make you stronger. Hashtag warrior. Lots of love, Imogen, XXX. So good. And then, Charlie, I miss my music buddy. I miss our chats about good bands. I really hope you're doing okay and starting to feel better. Love you loads, pal. Sahar, X. And then the last one. Hey, Charlie. Miss you so much. I'm sorry I didn't try to help more, but the fact that you asked for help yourself just goes to show what a strong person you are. I love you. Get back here soon so we can watch Emma again. Love, Isaac, X.
They're all perfect.
So those are our lovely notes that are in the card for Charlie. I also just want to point out before we move on from this is at what point I noticed that the Truum patches, the leaves on the tree are so colorful and pretty now for fall. I'm like, this is for sure my favorite patch I've seen thus far.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's cool. That like all of that is so perfectly written for those. That's exactly what each character would put in the card, especially like hashtag warrior. That's hilarious. But
So good.
yeah, so perfect. I also just love like Tara and Nick's friendship. Like,
Yeah.
and I think it's because they are, I mean, I know they're like a year older, but like it just shows you like how much more like, I don't know, like Tara is more, again, emotionally intelligent when she can just pick up on exactly how Nick is in those moments. And I know like, you know, it's nice to have all the group around him and like they're all want to look out for him as different ways, but I always feel like Tara's the one that cuts through everything. It's just like, what's going on? How are you doing? Almost like kind of mothering him in a way.
Yeah.
And is looking out for him and looking after him without being overbearing. But like, it's just the evolution of their friendship from like the first season to this point is, I love it. You know, it makes sense where I feel like, you know, Tara would be the person that Nick, if he just needed to call someone immediately, would be the person.
Yeah.
And it just, it tracks for that friendship. But yeah, I just really like them two together. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, they get each other on a level that the other, not that the others don't get him or anything like that, those two, but they understand each other on a different level. There's a reason that they gravitated towards each other as 13-year-old kids at a school dance. Like, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Well, hello. We are back with another Isaac's Book Watch with Kate. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
Okay, so episode 4, we've got some good books to discuss for this episode. All of them obviously are Isaac books. There's no one else this week. The first one is a book called Starfish by Akemi Dawn Bowman. We see Isaac reading this at the park when they're cutting Darcy's hair. He's got it sort of down to the bottom of the screen. This is another repeat author, which is lovely. So we've seen Summer Bird Blue, which Isaac read at the prom in episode 8 of season 2. So obviously an author that he enjoys. This book is about a girl called Kiko, who's a biracial Japanese-American girl. It's about her trying to get into college. She's an artist, but also dealing with sort of a complicated relationship with her family, particularly her mother. There's some abuse mixed in there. It's not the easiest read, but I did really enjoy it. A lot of it is about her struggling with her identity, which obviously is a big over sort of arching theme of Heartstopper. And I do wonder if the sort of mother relationship is a nod to Darcy and her transformation in this scene. But also, it's called Starfish. There is a starfish on the cover, but there's also a jellyfish, which I think is a throwback probably to Isaac's moment in the zoo with all the jellyfish around him, which I think is really lovely.
Yeah, that's very cute.
So that one's a quick flash. We don't get any sort of idea if he's enjoying it, but it's just a really nice sort of little placement there, a reminder about his story and reflecting on Darcy. So I think it's a lovely inclusion, and I'm assuming probably an author that Alice enjoys if we're repeating the author again, which is nice.
Definitely.
The second book that we see him reading is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which is quite a big book within the story of the series. I think a lot of people are really excited to see it. it's quite a popular book. So we see him reading it at the park again, which is nice, sort of among his friends, feeling comfortable. And it's when they're putting together the care package for Charlie. So I think this is a really nice thing that he's doing, because I think this is actually part of his care package for Charlie. So you mentioned in a previous episode, there's a text message chain between Isaac and Charlie where Charlie recommends this book to Isaac, and Charlie's saying that it's a tragedy and it's sad, but it's beautifully written. And he says it's a love story. The love story is heartbreaking in the best way. And Isaac says, I need to be in a specific mood to read something sad, but sounds wonderful, adding it to my to-read list. So I think this is him thinking, Charlie's asked me to do this for him. I'm going to read it for him at this time. When he's missing Charlie, it's sort of a way for him to feel like he's communicating with Charlie, even though Charlie's not there.
Yeah.
I really like that. I think that's really nice that, it's sort of showing that he's wanting to continue that relationship even when he can't speak to Charlie.
Yeah, it's like a way for him to feel close.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's lovely. And then later in the episode, we get his review to Charlie on Tao's video. And he says, I know you said it was going to have a sad ending, but I wasn't prepared. And I cried for about 4 hours. So Charlie was right. I think that means Isaac enjoyed it. He obviously really felt the story, really touched him. So I think that's lovely. I think it probably would have cheered Charlie up to hear that Isaac's reading the book that he'd recommended, and something to look forward to when he gets back home, that he can talk to Isaac about it. So I think this was a great inclusion. It's the sort of book that most people probably expected Isaac to have read already. There's been a lot of people saying, how has he not read this? He's so widely read. It's such a popular book.
Yeah.
I guess it's just been hanging around on his TBR for ages. Yeah. So just a little summary. It's a retelling of a Greek story about Achilles, sort of within the Trojan War, and his romantic relationship with Patroclus. So it was really successful. It came out in 2011, and it's really what's kicked off a big wave of retellings within literature. So the fact that Isaac hasn't read this yet, it's really good that he has, because it's something that he definitely would have been aware of. And it's just a lovely, story. Well, it's not lovely. It's heart-wrenching, but it's an enjoyable book. Really happy to see that Isaac read this one.
Nice. I haven't read it yet. I was aware of it before Heartstopper. I'd heard of it, but since then I moved it up on my to be read. It's like pretty high to the top now.
Good.
So
good.
soon I will consume it.
Perfect. Okay, so the last book that we actually see him reading it. We see him holding it, is Emma by Jane Austen, which is with his Halloween costume, which I just love. Like, Toby Donovan looks so dashing.
Yeah, he does look so good.
He should dress like that all the time. He looks wonderful. So this is another repeat author. We've seen him reading Pride and Prejudice, both at the sleepover in season 1, and also he was holding it in some of the promo images for season 2, Pride and Prejudice. So we're seeing here he's got a love of the classics and Jane Austen. So this time he's reading Emma. Presumably his dressing up outfit is Mr. Knightley, who's sort of the romantic interest at the end of Emma, although they don't explicitly say that. I think it's just really nice. We know that Alice Oseman really enjoys Jane Austen. She references it quite a lot, so it's a lovely thing to have in there in that respect. But it's also just a throwback to I think it's the previous episode where he goes to Charlie's house and they settle down and they watch Emma. We don't know which Emma they watch. There's a few out there. The most recent one is Anya Taylor-Joy, so possibly that one, but it could be a 90s throwback, Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah. Most people, though, the most common way they know the story of Emma is it's what Clueless is based on, which obviously is quite different in sort of its tone, but that's sort of the general overarching plot as well. I haven't read Emma. It's also on my TBR.
That is probably another way that he's using the books he's reading to feel close to Charlie again, because it's going to be reminiscent of them watching it together.
And then hopefully they can, when Charlie's back home, they can sit down. They just need to have a big book club catch up where they can talk about all the things that he's been reading when Charlie's not there. So I think this is a really nice selection for Isaac this episode. You know, we've got some classics, YA, and then with Song of Achilles, just something that's really solid that a lot of people will have read and heard of. And if they're not, they haven't, it's something for them to look for. So I think it's a great selection this episode.
Yeah. And I definitely missed some of them. I did not count that many but there's so much going on in that episode.
Yes, and especially like with Starfish, it's right down the bottom of the screen. I didn't even catch it on my first watch. It was my second watch when I went through with a pencil and paper. Like, I'm doing my book watch, I'm ready. that I caught them. But it's so nice, just those little moments, like putting the starfish book with the jellyfish cover. You think, oh, they've just put so much thought into it beyond the plot being a direct match. It's the cover matches, it works. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. All right. So we will see you next week for winter.
Yes. Episode 5.
I'm like, my brain's fried. All right. We'll see you then.
Okay. Thanks, Ashley.
Bye. So then we cut to Nick walking up to the Halloween party in his Captain America outfit.
Doesn't he look great, though?
He does look so good. I just love the Captain America after having Haley Atwell in this season.
I know.
It's so good.
And then later on when they hit this, like when Nick and Charlie talk about Marvel again on the phone, it's just,
yes.
It's so funny. It's like, really, Joe? Is that how you feel?
Yeah. So he walks in and Imogen is at the door. She's immediately like, Nicholas, you were supposed to be my Ken. And he said, this is all I could find. And she's like, but we agreed on something. What about the photos? Imogen, never change. I fucking love you. Do we think she's a Leo? Because we don't know her birthday. We don't know Imogen's birthday. But I think she has to at least have a little bit of Leo in her big 3 somewhere. Like, for sure.
She's got Leo rising in there.
Yeah. Also, the fact that he's like, this is all I could find, when Ken literally, he could have just wore a button up and some shorts. Like,
right.
Ken is so easy.
Right. He could have just written on a white t-shirt, I am Knuff, and it would have been fine.
Exactly. So good. So Nick walks over to Tao, who's like filming a little cow figurine that's being abducted.
Because of course he is.
Yeah, of course. It absolutely tracks. He turns around and says he's making a video for Charlie so that he knows how much they all love him, and tells Nick he should say something. And then he gives him the cue. Nicholas Nelson, what do you have to say to your boyfriend, Charlie Spring? And this is Billie Eilish playing in the background. It's so good. It's so perfect. It's the perfect mood for this scene. And the way that he looks at the camera and the pink lighting is around him reminds me of the pink daydream lights.
I love the cut of like, the camera coming down and it's Charlie, like not Tao. It just, this is the gut punch that follows.
It really is.
Sorry, that is the prelude to another gut punch that comes up very shortly after.
Yeah.
It's just everything like this. This is just like the perfect portrayal of like, this is what's been in Nick's mind for like, the past month, all of this coming together, and it's just so well done.
Yeah.
And it's so nice because Nick's having to face his own reality here. It's where it's kind of like snapping him into like, oh, what would I say to Charlie in this moment? Because, he's been haunting my mind for so long. What would I say to him when I had the chance right now? I'm on the spot. There's a camera in my face, and just he goes for how he feels,
Yeah.
But it's the way that kid plays it, and like how he can barely pull his mouth into a smile because he wants to show support and like that. Charlie obviously makes him happy, but he ain't happy right now. And how many times have we been in those circumstances when we have to fake a smile just to get through something? Right. And that's what we got here big time. Also,
the hesitation very much reads like, kind of like you said, I'm on the spot.
Yeah.
Charlie's been gone at least 2 weeks, if not 3 at this point. So he hasn't seen him for that amount of time, which is the longest amount of time, I'm sure. I mean, separate from Menorca, but they could text and, they had minimal communication, but this is like dead silence. Yeah. And so the longest that he's gone without hearing from him. And, he's probably been thinking about what he's going to say the first time he gets to talk to him. And then now that he's like actually put on the spot with the chance to do it, he's like overwhelmed, like, oh, well, what was I going to say again? Like, and then the way that like, when the camera lowers and it's Charlie and Charlie like smiles at him and it's in Charlie's room and it just, it fucking hurts. It hurts so bad. So he says, hi, Charlie, I love you. And like you said, we get like just the faintest smile. And then Tao pulls him right out of it and says, well, you heard it here, folks. Nick Nelson loves Charlie Spring. And he's like, okay, that's great. thank you, and like pushes the camera down. And then we get this very cute interaction between Tao and Isaac where he's like, oh, Tao, cool rabbit costume. Instantly offended. He's like, I'm clearly Frank from Donnie Darko. And Isaac is like, I don't know the words that are coming out of your mouth. What is, he's
Donnie
what
who?
from what? Yeah. And he's like, we watched it last week. Isaac's like, no, we didn't. And Tao's like, were you asleep again? And I love Toby's delivery of the, ooh, I might have been asleep. And they kind of like run away. And my note here is just Alice Oseman yet again breaking my fucking heart into a million pieces and setting it on fire and then immediately making me laugh. Stop doing that. Also, once again, this party is insanely decorated for just some teenagers throwing it together.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? This is such a cool party.
I like their outfits. They've gone all out. I mean, like, Tao, like, you know, looks great as the Donnie Darko bunny. And then, you know, we see Tara later on as, like, Princess Fiona. And, like, just all of this. Like, they've really gone all out with their outfits as well.
Yes. Yeah. So then Nick opens a beer. And at that point, I was like, oh, no.
We spiraling.
Not gonna be good.
We spiraling.
And so, yeah, he stands there for a long time. And then we cut him entering another room, drinking another beer. And he walks through that room and sees Imogen and Sahar absolutely going at it. And he just says, oh. And then we see Sahar like run past Nick, Tara, Darcy, and Elle. And then we get Nick opening another beer. And then we see Imogen throwing up. And Nick's like trying to support her. He's like trying to hold her hair, probably also trying not to throw up himself. And I just want to say yet again, like, what a good friend Nick is. Like, he's in so much pain. He's like barely even at this party mentally, but he's still like, you can see when Sahar runs past them, he's like, it's like, oh, something's happened with Imogen. They were just making out. So he clearly went to check on her, and now he's taking care of her while she's throwing up. Meanwhile, he is absolutely miserable. So just what an amazing friend. And Imogen's like, everyone kisses everyone when they're drunk. I'm allowed to experiment. This is literally like when I got a boyfriend and she got mad at me for literally no reason. And I'm like, Imogen, open your eyes, girl. Open your eyes.
Yep. Look at what's going on right now.
Yes. And as this is going, like, the flashes are like speeding up and it's getting like more and more chaotic. And whatever this song is like perfect. It's like makes you anxious just like listening to it. So then we see like him looking around the room, and then we get a shot of him sitting on the couch with the party skeletons as the party like passes around him. And at some point somebody comes by and like gives the skeletons a drink, which always makes me giggle. That someone's like making sure that the little party skeletons get their drinks.
It's a great time-lapse shot as well. Like, yeah, you know, it just says everything, how you're standing still while everything else is moving around you. And that's just perfectly encapsulates how Nick feels right now. Yeah,
and that is what it feels like. There's a couple of shots. This is the one for me in this half. And then there's another one that I'll talk about in the next half that, like, I've been there. And this is exactly what it feels like. It does feel just like everyone is going 90 miles an hour around you and you're stuck. So he walks into another room. We see him hug Elle. We see Tara say, you came. And so this is where like the timeline starts to get wonky. And at first I was like, oh, I think they maybe like mixed that up in the editing. But then the more times I watched it, I was like, no, I think this is like a good way that they're conveying how blurry and convoluted everything gets when you're fucked up.
Yeah.
So, like, we've already seen bits of the party, but now this is clearly him seeing them for the first time. They're, like, hugging him. And so, like, his memory is all going to be blurred. Right. And the timeline's going to be lost to him as well. Speaking of lost, he looks so lost. He is just wandering around this party. We do see Tara. She's, like, keeping an eye on him.
Yes, I did write that down. I love that.
Yeah. And I think that this is one of the scenes that Alice directed. Was him sitting on the couch with the party like passing by. She did some fill-in directing and she listed off the scenes, and the ones that I can remember I'm pretty sure was this one of him on the couch at the party, and then the uni trip. Imogen like opens up to Nick about not ever liking a boy and stuff. That was also Alice directing that. So yeah, again, the flashes start to speed up again. We get another shot of him on the couch, and then Imogen's throwing up, and then they're dancing, and then he's on the couch, and then there's him opening another beer, and then he's back on the couch, and then finally he stumbles into an empty hallway. When he sits down, he's doing the like, I'm too drunk, heavy breathing.
Yeah.
And you can tell that he's like close to crying.
Yeah.
And he looks up and Tao is there. Also, no doubt he was keeping an eye on him and saw him slip away and followed. And Tao says, mind if I join? And Nick says, yeah, go on. And so he like scoots over a bit. And Tao sits down next to him. And Nick is like barely holding it together, but you can tell that he like doesn't want to do it in front of Tao. And when he like looks away and the tears finally start to fall, Tao reaches over and just holds him and pulls him into a hug and holds him through it. And it gets me every fucking time. Every fucking time. And the way that like, as he's having this breakdown, Tao's holding him and he's like, you could tell he's just like so worried about Nick in this moment. He's like chewing on his lip. He's hurting with Nick. Like they're sharing this hurt in this moment. And I'm just so glad that these two have like slowly become friends. And like after Nick shut down Tao at the zoo, there could have been a lot of animosity between the two of them about him like not letting him help. And like, you know how Tao can get. And so just the fact that he's not holding any negative emotions about that interaction and, you know, not letting him help or whatever, however he sees it. And he just doesn't have any of that. And he's just there for him. That's really big for like people in general, but especially for teens. And for like, if you think back at season 1 Tao, like he's come so far. Yeah.
This is like the bottom of the barrel moment of the episode for me. This is like, you know, when you've got nothing left, you can't hold it together anymore. Yep. And obviously, you know, Nick is obviously influenced by having alcohol. So like, you know, that makes me more emotional, definitely.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I love in this scene that when Tao does sit down next to him, he doesn't need to say anything because he just gets it. So when he throws his arm around him and pulls him in, like he knows to do that instinctively because that's what he needs right now. And my God, Kit Connor's acting, like, is like chef's kiss. Like to go from like looking away, like literally on the verge of like, you know, hitting the bottom of the spiral to then like crying into Tao. Like, it's a gut punch. It's the biggest gut punch of the episode for me, really. Sorry, of like Nick's journey.
This half, yeah.
Yeah. But it's just, it's like, it's so real as well. And as you said, like, what a journey Tao has been on from like, Charlie is still really important to Tao, you know, and he obviously still feels shit because he missed a lot of this, like, because he's been so obsessed with Elle. He's missed so much of like what Charlie's been going through and like his journey. So he obviously feels pretty bad as well. But he knows at this point, you know, well, Charlie's away from me right now. If I can't help him in this moment, of course, I'm making this video, but I certainly am going to make sure that Nick's okay, you know, and like he's learned from that. And I love that, as you said, like season 1 Tao would have just, you know, been so far removed from Nick, it's unbelievable. Would have probably avoided him at the party altogether. Yeah. But for him to like, you know, be the bigger man and like come over and sit down with him and just be like, come here. Like, you know, I can't even imagine how you feel. I barely understand how I feel, but I know right now you just need someone and I'm here, man. You know, and that's absolutely what he needed in this point. This is the version of Tao. This is the part of Tao that I really love. Yeah. And it's so nice that we get to see more of this. But yeah, Kit Connor's acting, I mean, he is breaking his heart. And he's doing that kind of like, he's doing that kind of crying, which isn't like, it isn't movie crying, or it isn't like, you know, movie crying sometimes for me is like when the face stays perfectly still and like a tear rolls down the cheek. Right. And when you can tell it's like, they've had the tear stick dropped on their face. He's like... Do you know what I mean? Like he's really giving crying face in this.
He's
and
breaking down.
Yep. And it really works. Like even just him grabbing onto Tao, like that works. And like, you know, you saw it earlier when he was giving Charlie a hug, like at the door, and like he grabs Charlie's jacket. It's like all of this, what we do. It's just, honestly, hat off to Kit Connor for this woman. And to be honest, to Tao as well, for like, both of them together sell this scene.
Yeah. And the way that like, when he's leaning in and he after he sobs, he inhales and you can see all of the like material from Tao's costume like suck into his mouth. Yeah. And I'm like, he's like, that's some shit that would happen. And like, so that you know that it's like real sobs that are happening. And also another thing about Tao is just like, I think a major influence on how he acts in this scene is the fact that he has Elle now. Like, he understands what it's like to love someone that much, like to have that connection with someone. And so he's able to empathize a little more with Nick here of like, what if it was Elle that was gone and how would I feel? And so I think that also plays a part in his journey here of being there for Nick.
Absolutely, yeah. He has that understanding now because he knows what it's like to nearly have lost Elle, like when he had that time. It definitely makes sense that he's more understanding from that perspective, and that he's kind of taken his head out of his own arse for a little bit here, and it's like, learned from that where he missed that with Charlie, so he's certainly not going to miss it from other friends around him.
Right.
And it's nice to see that effort being made, because it needed to be, he needs to step up in terms of being a friend, and he is being like the friend here right now.
Yeah, 100%. So then we get the November label, and Nick is in his room and he's sitting against his bed talking on the phone, and we get the voiceover that at the start of November, Charlie phoned from the clinic for the first time. And Nick says, well, next year I'm going to make you go as Spider-Man. And Charlie says, your Marvel agenda is never going to work on me.
Well, it bloody did, Joe.
yeah. And Nick's like, even if I go as Mary Jane, do the upside down kiss. The scream that I scrummed. I was like, ah!
I mean, do I need to see Nick as Mary Jane in my life? Yes. Do I need to see this Spider-Man kiss happen? Yes. So that would be hilarious. It also just tracks.
Like, they would fucking do that, too. They would be that couple.
It'd be so funny.
Charlie, that does change his tune. He's like, maybe I could be persuaded, actually. And then he just drops the bomb. So I have anorexia and OCD. And Nick says, oh. And Charlie's like, yeah, there's not really an unawkward way to say that. And Nick says, I guess that makes sense. Charlie's like, I mean, I was a bit surprised by the OCD, but I have all these rules in my head about food, and if I don't follow them, I feel like I'm going to die. And then he kind of like chuckles, and he's like, sorry, I have to laugh about it or I'll just cry, which is relatable. Humor is definitely my go-to.
That's mine as well. And like, if there's an awkward moment, like, my natural reaction is to laugh.
Yeah,
because
same.
Otherwise it avoids from freaking out. So yeah, that 100% rings true for a lot of people, I imagine.
Yeah. And Nick just, he takes that and he picks it up and he's like, all right, well, even if you have anorexia and OCD, the S word, the word sorry is still banned. And he's like, aw, can I play the mental illness card now? And Nick's like, nope. The S word ban still applies to the mentally ill. And I just want to say that I'm so glad that Nick knows, like, when to pull the S word joke and when not to. Because, like, the other times in this episode so far that we've seen him say sorry, it was for, like, the self-harm and, like, for breaking down and being mean to everybody and stuff. And so in those cases, he just comforts him. But he's here and he's, Charlie is saying humor is helpful. And so Nick takes that and goes with it. And it's just, again, a sign of how emotionally intelligent he is.
And I love the way this is shot as well, where he's like sitting like on the floor of his bedroom, like leaning against his bed, and like the way the camera like pulls back from him slowly. I think that's really nice. It's just a really nice shot, seeing like the light coming in behind him through the window, but as well it's like it's a new day because he's going to go and see Charlie, so like or all the darkness and the misery of like the party, it's like we've got a new day now. It's just Nick. Everything's very still, everything is very calm. We're not so close to Nick where we're inside of his kind of trapped in his mind of how he's felt for so long. We're pulling back now, but gently, because things have changed, and I really like that. Just, more brilliant storytelling that the show manages to do, the way it's filmed. It's really clever.
Yeah, you're right. And the uncertainty is all gone now. Like, he's hearing from Charlie. He's hearing that, it's going well. He's having a good experience. So he can stop spiraling about the worst case scenario. Then we cut to Nick and Tori in the back of the spring car, and the voiceover says, I'd visit him with his family a couple of times a week after that. Part of me wished I could go every day, but he needed space. And he looks over at Tori, and she takes out her earbud and looks at him and is like, What? Yeah, what? He's like, nothing. Like, turns back around, and he says, still not sure Tori likes me. And that's a change from the comic, too, because in the comic, he says, I think Tori likes me. Yeah. And when I watched it for the first time, in the second half, when she says, he's my favorite, I just immediately was like, started crying. I just started sobbing.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a beautiful little tie together. And it also
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that like that's not something that Tori's going to tell Nick. Like
Exactly.
she's going to keep him on his toes, you know. So they pull up to this facility and they walk in and check in, and the set dressing is so good at this
Mm-hmm.
place.
Yeah.
There's we got the leaves all over the walls. It's also very heavy on yellow, which
Mm-hmm.
is Charlie's color.
And a daffodil color.
Yes. And Nick is like looking around, and we see behind him that like Charlie comes down the hall, and then Nick turns and they see each other and they smile, and the leaves come around and it's code blue, Ashley is down. Somebody come do CPR, she's out.
The way they look at each other in that corridor, though, just says everything.
And the way the music builds,
Mm-hmm.
like,
And
oh,
the lighting and everything, like, and you think about the last corridor scene that we had, like, it was like Nick breaking down, and like looking at Tao, and they're both looking at each other concerned. Compared to this, like, this is what we needed. This is what we've been waiting for as the viewer. This is what Nick has been waiting for. And it's just, I love as well, he's like out of focus, like at first, and then like, when he turns and sees it comes into focus, it's just
so good.
And like the fact that Charlie looks so happy, he looks healthier. He looks like not fully complete, of course, not fully better, but he just looks in a much better place than when we last saw him. Yeah. And that's how Nick needed to see Charlie.
Yeah. And like all of the tension just kind of like melts off of Nick.
Yeah.
And so we go outside at the picnic table. Charlie's like opening his box and he's reading his card. I said, surprise, there are gay top trumps.
Yep.
And then this is like a picnic table montage, if you will, where we get to see like the progress of every time that Nick is visiting. So we get the voiceover says, I knew he wasn't magically better or anything like that. And we see like Jane's hugging him.
Yes. About bloody time.
Yes.
This is what we've needed for so long from her. And this little montage alone, along with like her taking him to the clinic, like this is the Jane that I've needed to see. And like she's laughing and she's smiling and she's making sure that Charlie's laughing and smiling. And like whenever he says anything, she leans over and hugs him and like big smiles. That's the energy you need to bring to your child when they're going through something like this. And this is the Jane that I love, because as I said, it could have been a caricature for so long that we've seen of like stressed Jane that takes things out on Charlie and then relies on Tori to parent in a way. This is what we've needed to see. This is what I've needed to see from her for so long. And that's why I really, really stand by her in this episode. She's doing everything for me that Charlie needs. And she's supporting her goddamn son, not saying go and have a paracetamol or whatever.
Yeah.
This is what we've needed to see. And I know, like, don't get me wrong. She obviously wasn't aware of like everything that Charlie was going through, but she didn't ask. And she didn't take the time to ask, she assumed. Whereas now, she's fully in of like, I'm supporting my child. Like we're all together now. He looks so much healthier. This is going well. So yeah, props to Jane for this.
Yeah, she's really present.
Yes.
In these videos or in these shots.
Yeah.
And then we get the voiceover where he's again finishing his sentence. Like, I know it doesn't work like that. And I knew that staying away from home was a risk. It could have been horrible. For some people, it doesn't help at all. And we see all these moments of like laughter and positive interactions that he's having. And this had me truly sobbing. And it gets me most watches. I still cry pretty much every single time we see this specific montage because just seeing the progress that he's making more and more in his visits with like the body language and the laughter and like he's opening up and he's even laughing with Jane and like it's just good to see it, but it also kills me in the best way because it's like you can just like see him getting better. It's like a release cry that I have.
And I think as well, it like hits you more emotionally when you see it with Charlie's journey as well, because like,
yes,
it's been a lot more clinical, his journey, where he's been talking to therapists and like going through procedurally of like trying to eat little bits of food. And he's been so far removed from his family for so long. So to know that, Nick has been around family and friends and everything and has still been suffering, Charlie has been in a different way where he hasn't had that close confidant of like people around him. So for him to see his family and to see his partner that he loves so much, to see his sister and like to hear from his friends with the box, like this is a reminder of like Charlie of, oh my God, even though I've been trapped in here, essentially, I still have my team around me outside. And this is so important. So yeah, it's so nice to see him just thrive with the people that love him the most.
Yeah, definitely. So Nick and Charlie are like walking away from the family. And the music starts to kick in, and Charlie grabs Nick and he leads him over to the tree line and he says, "Can you kiss me, please?" And they kiss. And this was like a sleeper cell activation when I watched it, because when that music starts, it was like everything in me tensed, because this is like an updated version of their first kiss music.
Yes.
And it hit me like 750 million tons of brick. Like, I mean, seriously, it gets me every time, but that first time it was like so overwhelming, because I was like, the music, I just like started crying. And the way that Nick is like so happy and relieved, you know, to be like, yes, I will kiss you. It's been so fucking long. Like, imagine the last time they kissed.
But like, it's what you've just said there. It's like they're seeing each other again for the first time, and how they saw each other the first time, like for that kiss, you know? So like the last time, as you said, the last time he saw him, he was like really suffering, really down. And like the last time they saw each other, they hugged goodbye, you know? But now like Charlie's been on this amazing journey of where he's like coming back and like he's, you know, starting to recover. But when they see each other again in the trees, it is almost like that hi moment again. We're seeing each other again, like back in that loving way that we used to see each other all of the time, you know? And it's that when you spend so much time away from your significant other and you haven't seen them for so long, and like when you see them again that first time when they're back, it is almost kind of magic, without sounding too cheesy, but like you're like, oh my God, like we are back. And I think that's what it is. Like, oh my God, you're back. And you know, I just love that, like, can you kiss me now, please? Like, just it's exactly what would happen.
Yeah. And you know that's like all that's been on his mind since Nick, he first locked eyes with him in the corridor. Like, and now they're finally getting a moment away from the family.
Yeah.
To walk over and have a kiss. So cute. And then we see the pages of his notebook again, and the voiceover and also what he's writing says, "Maybe it's just me hoping for the best, but honestly, I think it helped. I really do." And the doorbell kicks in, and another amazing music cue starts up. The leaves like float around Nick, and then he runs down to the door, and we get this fake out where we think it's going to be Charlie and your heart's in your throat because you know they're about to see each other, and he opens the door, and then we go back in time, kissing in the tree line, riding in the back of the car with Tori, crying with Tao, walking around the party, hugging everyone. At the park, building the box, with the rugby lads in his room, talking to Nellie in her bed, driving over the line with the instructor, in form alone, hugging Charlie goodbye, waving to the car, playing Mario Kart with Charlie and Tori. At the park, cutting Darcy's hair, crying in the art room floor. At the picnic tables with Tao, Nick trying to give him toast, back to the spring couch, and we are back to September. Talk about gagged. I was shook the first time watching this.
I loved it. Like, I just wasn't, I wasn't expecting it to happen, to be honest.
Same.
I was like, I wonder how are we just going to have Nick's journey? Oh my God, here we go. And like, for all of them to capture this in one episode, like, man, like, even we can't do that. So like, you know, it's like, it was brilliant. As you said, I was gagged, I was gooped, and I just loved it. I love it because, this is the right way to do it. And like all of the little crossover moments as well, like, you know, when we hear Charlie on the phone, like talking to Nick, and then when we see Charlie walk out into the corridor and see Nick at the end of the corridor, and like all of these little like moments that cross over when it all just seamlessly comes together. Yeah, it was awesome.
Genius.
So
hail Alice Ozen.
It was brilliantly handled, man. Just yeah. It's just, I love the way that we end the episode, which we'll get to in the next episode when we talk about Charlie's journey, because everything we go through just makes it so worthwhile for that ending.
Yes. Yep. And we're waiting on, you know, like that's something we've literally been waiting since the beginning of this episode, and they're like, here you go, just kidding.
Yeah.
Wait 15 more minutes.
It's like the door just opens a little bit. Nope, we're shutting the door again. But great to do the rewind there as well with the doorbell, and like seeing Nick run to the door because, you know, he's almost there, and then nope, we're going to go back. And that's what keeps you wanting to see, you know, all of the second half. But yeah, genius.
Brilliant. Oh, holy banana boats, Batman. What a start.
Yeah, what a an emotional journey, and it's only going to get worse with the next one as well.
Mm-hmm.
But man, just brilliant, like
So
brilliant,
good.
like had to be done this way, and I'm so pleased that
Mm-hmm.
they did. To give both of our main like characters just time to breathe in their own journeys, to see like both of them go through exactly what they go through, separately, and just like yeah, it's a heavy episode, this one, but we get every emotion in this episode, and I think that's why I love it more than anything. We've been building up to this episode, which is what makes it so important. This
Yeah.
is the payoff of the last kind of, 3 episodes that we've seen prior to this. And it just delivers. And then as we said at the beginning, this is the turning point.
Yeah.
Like this is where we are more mature now. And like we see it later on, like their relationship matures in a way that like blossoms, where they are fully sharing each other with each other, like emotionally, physically. We see that later on. And yeah, this is the big turning point for the season. And this is, for me, the best direction that the show goes in.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
It's so good.
Mhm.
I do have a couple of other things to share from Tumblr.
Mhm.
Alice talked about this one a lot. And so someone asked about the text messages, and I have some for other episodes too. I'm going to save them and we'll come back and talk about them. But we do get to see the full text between Charlie and Nick when Nick is like in form, texting him, asking him if he's out of school.
Mhm.
We see Nick says, "Hey, Char, are you okay?" And then Charlie says, "I'm off school today, not feeling great. Sorry." And Nick says, "Ah, no, I hope you get to feeling better. Do you need me to bring you anything?" No
Mhm.
response.
Mhm.
And then Nick replies again later and says, "I hope you got some good rest." No response. And then he texts him again and says, "Love you." No response.
Yeah.
And then we see he texts again and says, "Hey, Char, are you feeling any better this evening?" No response. And then Nick says, "Hope you're getting some good sleep." No response. And then that's when we get, "Hey, are you off school today too?" Question mark, question mark. So just another look at how unresponsive Charlie's been.
Mhm.
And then someone asked, I'm going to give their shout out their name because it's Folklore Lover, which if you're listening, Folklore Lover, great username.
Folklore and Evermore, the best albums. I'm just going to say it.
So they say when Tao is filming on his camera, is Will actually filming in the scenes, and is that the same footage that's used later when we get to see the video? And Alice said sometimes he is and sometimes he isn't. If he's clearly holding the camera in the scene/shot, then yes, Will was probably filming. However, if Tao is just behind the camera and we don't see him, then that was probably Simona, the DOP, who was filming. And if Tao is holding the camera in a scene that we're seeing not in the camera footage, aka a normal shot, then he's usually holding a fake version of the camera to prevent the real thing from getting damaged, which is smart.
Fair. Fair.
So there's that. And then somebody asked, "Hey, Alice, what was your favorite theme explored in season 3? Like representation, friendship, mental health, etc." Alice said, "Charlie's mental health journey is my favorite thing about season 3. They said, it's the story that takes us from the start to the end of this season, and we follow him through every beat of that journey. It's a story that's existed in some form since I wrote my first book, Solitaire. So it has a lot of personal importance to me and the history of my writing. Writing that story in the comic and now in the show feels like I'm in conversation with the past me who wrote that story originally in Solitaire. And in Heartstopper, I've been able to take that element of Solitaire and give it a spotlight. And through the character who I love like my own child. A writer's dream, really. So yes, that's my favorite theme in season 3. Of course, that's their favorite because it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's also written with so much like love and care that you can tell that it like deeply mattered to Alice.
And great that Alice could explore that more within like the next body of work. So yeah.
And I love what they said. It's like having a conversation with past Alice who wrote Solitaire. Like that's so, because that was, they were young when they wrote Solitaire, like 19, I think.
Yeah. Possibly when Durham was in the picture as well. Who knows?
Right. Yes.
All right, guys, so that wraps it up for today. We will be back in 2 weeks with Season 3, Episode 4, Journey Part 2.
Yes. If you want to follow us online, we are at Why Are We Cast on all platforms. And if you like this, please consider rating and reviewing us. It really helps. Until next time, bye.
Bye.